Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we are covering the spell Summon Celestial.
This is like the only summon spell clerics and paladins get, and it's kind of a bummer. Because this spell's kind of a bummer. It's
Okay, this is where I was coming, but I come at these summon spells every time thinking this one doesn't look too impressive to me, and then you tell me why that's not the case. But this one, I looked at it carefully. I thought, but this is just all they do is some damage, right?
more or less.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is from Touch Cauldron and everything. It's a 5th level conjuration spell. It's notable because this is a cleric spell, which means clerics can cast this. It's also a paladin spell. I mean, you're going to be a 17th level paladin when you do that, or I guess a 15th. It doesn't matter. You don't want to cast this as paladin because you're not going to get to, because you're not playing the game because it's a really high level. If you do get cast it, it's like, yep, my cleric's been doing that since level 9. Bummer. Anyway, outside of the difference between fast casters and full casters, this is a 90-foot cast time of an action, like all the others. A concentration up to an hour, like all the others. Requires a golden reliquary with 500 gold, like all the others. Others being the summon spells from Travis Cauldron and everything. You call for the Celestial Spirit. It manifests as an angelic form in an unoccupied space that you can see in the range. It uses the Celestial Spirit stat block. When you cast it, pick Avenger or Defender, which is notably only 2 options. Normally these get 3. It getting 2 is sad. Celestials really have a bad time in Dungeons and Dragons. Your choice determines its attack and its stat block, and that is it. It doesn't get anything else besides a change of attack between the 2 forms, which is also unusual for these. The creature disappears when it drops to 0 hit points when the spell ends. The creature is an ally to you and your companions in combat. It shows your initial count, yada yada yada. It acts after your turn. You don't have to spend actions to do it. It just does it. When you upcast it, it increases. Notably, you want to cast it as a 6th level spell because then it gets 3 attacks. The Celestial Spirit on its own has a fly speed of 40, which is pretty good. It's got an AC of like 11 plus spell level, so 16. It does say defenders get a +2, so sure. Defenders get a shield, basically. So defenders are going to be sitting on ACs of like 19, 20 pretty easily. Hit points, they have 40 plus 10 plus level above 5th, so surprisingly actually not that much HP for this tier. 40 is an alright chunk of HP at 9th level, but like in the upper tiers, this thing is going to die pretty quickly. It's got some damage resistance, immune to some conditions, charmed and frightened. Nothing like really stands out beyond that. And then we get to the attacks. So it's got multi-attack. It makes number of attacks equal to half spell level. So again, if you're level 6 level spell with it, you get 3 attacks. The Radiant Bow is a 2d6 ranged attack with a reach of 150 over 600. So this is similar to some Fiends. Devils get fireballs from distance. This is basically the same thing. 2d6 at range is great. At minimum, you're going to summon this thing and it's going to hit like a truck more than your ranger is. It's going to be obnoxious. Defenders get Radiant Mace. So Radiant Mace is a d10 melee attack, which gets +3 plus the spell's level radiant damage on hit. And then it also has this neat little effect, so it can choose itself or another creature within 10 feet to get 10d10 HP. And it does that every time it hits. So it often is going to be on a single round. You hit 3 things, 3 nearby creatures within 10 feet are all going to get bigger, including itself. So you like have a paladin and the barbarian both get bigger whenever it attacks, which is pretty neat. And then finally they all get this feature called Healing Touch, which is it's a level 2 lay on or cure wounds once per day. That's it. That's not really worth talking about because it's not that good. So there's really only one interesting feature here, right?
The
Radiant Mace. The
Radiant
temp
Mace,
HP thing, right? It's the attack for the defender.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Yeah. Yeah, that's neat. How long does that last?
Indefinitely if it doesn't give a duration of 10 HP, it's until you complete your next long rest, I believe. But otherwise it just lasts forever, including after the spell goes away. The temporary hit points don't go away when the spell goes away, which is neat. Probably is not gonna matter that much because you're normally getting like 5-ish, which means it's basically mitigating 2 or 3 attacks over a long fight. Which is pretty good, and it does that on multiple creatures, which is great.
What if I don't know, if you had some kind of huge creature restrained and just allowed your defender to pound on him with a mace for the entirety of its turn?
Yeah, temporary hit points unfortunately don't stack, so they will always take whatever the highest rolled result is. So if you have other characters that are getting 10 HP, so I know like there are a lot of warlock builds that like leveraging 10 HP between Armor of Agathis and Fiendish Vigor and the Pact of the Fiend's regular 10 HP that it grants. there's going to be some conflict because the defender is not going to be giving them HP if they already have 10 HP, but that's not going to be most of the time. Most of the time, 10 HP falls off pretty fast as you're getting hit. That's kind of what it's for. It's supposed to say, I'm going to be a frontline character, so I'm going to take hits, the 10 HP goes away, and then I can get more back. And this is the way to get more back. This is going to be great on your paladins, it's going to be great on your barbarians, it's going to be great on characters that don't already have it. It's great to get with characters with resistances. Barbarian's Rage gives it resistance to damage, so that's going to double the effectiveness, you can consider it, of the Defender's Mace. So Baritone the Barbarian is really good with this. I think it's really neat. I think it's pretty novel. It's the option that I would almost always want to take, especially because I'm a cleric. If I'm a frontline cleric, especially, I want this. It's also nice that frontline clerics can take things like spiritual weapon alongside of this. There are some long concentration effects or long non-concentration duration effects that clerics get access to that make it, you can have like a really locked down front area, which is pretty cool. I'm a little bit sad that paladins have a worse time with it because of how half-casters function. They're going to just spend these spell slots on smites, but that's not necessarily a problem for this video. It ends up being a spell that I like. If you're not picking defender, you're just getting a battery in the back line, and that's cool, I guess. Like, it's good. I'm not going to say it's bad, but is that exciting?
No, the Defender's Mace is kind of cool, but I don't know. When summon Celestial, I'm envisioning this avenging angel coming out of the heavens and like doing some cool stuff. But just, bing, bing, bing.
Yeah. You get a little Cupid. I don't know.
Yeah.
This compares really poorly to Conjure Celestial too, which is a bummer. Conjure Celestial gives you Quaddles, which are cracked. And I think it's a 7th level slot though, or you can upcast it to 9th to get Unicorns. And the reason both those are cracked is they just have a shitload of things they can do. They have like a whole huge spell list and a bunch of cool abilities.
We had the same conversation with Summon Aberration. It should be cooler, but I mean, the whole point of these Tasha's summoning spells is to simplify the summoning, I suppose.
Yeah, they succeeded. They're good. Yeah. I just like there needed to be more text than just the Defender Mace. Like there's nothing else here. Healing Touch doesn't count because Healing Touch is ass. Like I don't. It's not even like Lay on Hands. It's just a once per day 2d8 plus spell level heal. That's not good. That's not a reason to want to cast this over any of the summon spells. And like, you're a cleric, you're not supposed to be the best summoner. I get it, but like, why does Celestials have to be this boring? There's so much interesting room for deities and for, good aligned. There's so many devils, there's so many demons, there's so many chaotic and evil monsters out there. There's like Solars, there's Empyreans, there's like Trumpet Archons, and I can't tell you which one looks like which. I know one of them is blue, and I could not tell you what the differentiating factor between these are because they're super high CR, and there's no like smaller middle grunts for the most part. They're like holy fints in one of the books, which are they're just gold-winged elephants. And like, there has to be more design space for us to take Celestials into, and I think this should have been a moment to sort of expand on that. Because what we get is,
well, I mean, no, this isn't the space to expand on that, because that's not what these summoning spells are.
Sure.
But I would agree that it could use some expansion.
So I think this would have been a space to put a new tier of Celestial, right? So we have Devils, Demons, and Yugoloths in the Summon Fiend. We could have had Avenger, Defender, and a new tier, a new kind of position for a Celestial to take on. I would have loved to see there be a decent supporting option for this that wasn't just once per day Healing Touch. I would have loved to see there be a buffing summon that you could get with this that fits within the Celestial wheelhouse. I would have loved to see like some kind of holy light that buffs its teammates every time it hits, right? Maybe it's something that's, instead of hitting at range for just a shitload of damage, what if it just shot guiding bolts? That seems entirely reasonable, right? Like that. Fun. And it would set this up as a supportive option. It would set this up as something that differentiates from the others outside of just damage. The fact that Radiant Bow looks almost identical to a Fiend's Fireball, that's so bland and sad to me because there's so much room for them to be different. There's so much room for them to have an extra sentence of text to make them interesting. And they just don't have that. And that's kind of a bummer. Still, I mean, despite the fact that I'm calling it a bummer, I'm not going to tell anyone not to take the spell because the spell is really, really good. Because 2d6 plus 9 attacks a turn are ridiculous. And that's just for free. You just have that on top of all the other things you're doing. That's just gross. I think it's better than Defender, and Defender's the cooler of the options as far as like mechanics go, and that's a bummer.
Well, what about how do Defenders attacks? Because they still get multi-attack, they're just not ranged.
It's a 1d10 versus 2d6 is a pretty substantial hit
Yeah.
difference. It's not like gargantuan, but it's notable that it does less damage. It's also notable that it has to get there, and now they do have 40-foot fly speeds, but I don't like the defender's job is to die. I think that you're going to get a lot more mileage out of the full hour duration if you pick the ranged option basically forever and always, because it's not intending to get hit. The defender going down, and this is less likely to go down than a lot of the other summons. That's the one thing it has going for it. I don't think it's going to be as consistent as far as damage goes. I think your frontline's probably going to be good enough at this stage of the game that you don't need another big, beefy, chunky frontline unit to help them out. There might be a couple fights where you're like, I think they're going to have a lot of damage. I will stick a defender into it that will help soak up like 3d10 worth of damage around-ish, plus the 40 HP it gets. That seems fine. At the same time, almost every fight's going to be as good or better with
plus the temporary hit points for every bash,
Yeah, again, like 3d10 HP around for 1d10 for each hit if it's 6th level, plus it's 40 HP is a decent pool. That's not nothing. I don't know if it's better than being able to engage every single round with 3 attacks from 150 feet away, because that's what the ranged option's offering, right?
Yeah.
The ranged option's offering another ranger that has 3 attacks instead of 2, another fighter, basically. Or you could take a melee ranged fighter, which is probably worse. I don't know. I think it's not bad by any stretch. I don't think it's going to be an option that you're going to be disappointed when picking. I just think that, like, if you're going to from a raw power perspective, the Avenger seems like if you want this to last, for example, if you want this to last more than a fight, you probably have to go with Avenger, right? Because you're intending for the defender to get killed. You're intending for them to take damage. That'd be my interpretation, at least.
I don't know. I'm picturing like he is just among all the other people rushing into the fray, and everybody's taking a little bit of damage, and he's making up for it by giving everybody temporary hit points over and over again.
If everyone's only taking a little bit of damage, do you need him?
Yeah, well, I'm not good at this. I have this fantasy in my head, and it never works out the way I imagined it. I still think this one might.
Yeah, I think this one might do a decent job delivering it. It has enough HP. It's going to have enough AC, too. It's going to have like a 20 AC, and that's going to be high enough that it's going to survive some hits. It might last more than a couple fights. I would say that the fights would have gone faster with the Avenger, and you probably didn't need it. But it will also be a defender fantasy. It'll also keep you a little bit healthier for whatever that last line of fight you're going into is. Again, 5e, I always like to think it's no shortage of healing. Short rests are
you can heal these guys, right?
You can spend resources to heal them, I believe. If you're taking a short rest, the spell's going to end before the rest completes, because it's only an hour duration.
All right.
So you can't, there's no resting that's going to restore these things. So you're going to have to figure out a way to get it hit points otherwise, which I don't know. I don't think you're spending spell slots to heal this. I think you're just casting this again at a lower level, because then you get the full HP back. But you can have it heal itself with its healing touch. It doesn't say another creature. Oh, never mind. It does say another creature. It does. It can't heal itself. Why is that? I hate boring spells, and this spell is kind of boring. Defender's not boring. The rest of it is.
Yeah, I would be using Defender, I imagine, and
I would too.
Continue failing at my brilliant strategy, but
again, I want to say it wouldn't be a failure. It just wouldn't be as efficient as the more boring mode, and that's something that annoys me, I think.
An hour-long duration. I think how many fights are you looking to get into in an hour?
Ideal. So if we're looking at like the designed goal, like aim of them, it's probably 3 or 4. Because then you're supposed to short rest, and then you're supposed to do 3 or 4, and then you're supposed to short rest, and then you have a big encounter. So like you're supposed to do a lot. How many people actually do? Probably 2 at most. In which case, it's if it doesn't die in the first fight, it'll be pretty beaten up for the next one. The Avenger doesn't give a shit about its HP. It can be at 3 and be exactly as effective most of the time. So, like,
I mean, it's still subject to ranged attacks, or
Yeah, for the defender is subject to ranged and melee attacks.
Yeah. Whatever. Anyways,
it's kind of a moot point. Both are fine modes. I think most tables are gonna have a great time with either. I still want my Celestials to be slightly more interesting. I want there to be cooler abilities this gives us access to that a fly speed, and it doesn't really do that. So,
yeah, I mean, if you want it simple, use this. If not, if you want it interesting, go for the Conjure Celestial. Yeah.
Absolutely. Quaddles are busted. They're like a whole, you basically summon a 6 or like a 13th level cleric. It's great. This summoning an 11th level fighter, that's summoning a 13th level cleric.
All right. Well, you got a rating for this?
It's still a 4. It's still obnoxious to have a multi-attacking fighter on the hip. And the defender one is genuinely pretty neat. I think it's pretty interesting to have I think that I honestly would love that to be a paladin class ability. The thing the defender does giving the 10 HP. I think it's a really cool fantasy to be the defender. It feels like it would be in that wheelhouse a lot. It's not though, but still as a spell, like yeah, this spell's great. You can't go wrong with it. DM's gonna have to account for it. It's a whole extra party member that hits like a truck.
Am I going to give it a 4 too? I already agreed with you last time.
That's true.
No, I'm going to give it a 3 because it disappoints me.
Another important note: if you're a cleric, this is kind of the best you get at 5th level. Until 7th level, you get Conjure Celestial, and Conjure Celestial is kind of a headache. But yeah, I mean, if you're interested in summoning magic and you're playing a cleric, this is probably something you pick.
All right. Well, that was Summon Celestial. We will see you next time for whatever we're doing next time. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description where you'll find my Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.